The crowd roared as Muhammad Ali danced around the ring, his gloves a blur of motion, his feet seemingly floating above the canvas. It was 1975, and the greatest boxer in history had just defended his heavyweight title once again. Sweat glistened on his brow as he raised his arms in victory, his trademark smile flashing beneath the bright lights of Madison Square Garden. But behind that smile, behind those eyes that had seen so much of the world, there was something few knew about. A gentleness that contradicted the fierce warrior who dominated the boxing world. 3 days later, far from the glamour and chaos of New York City, Ali found himself driving down a dusty road in rural Kentucky. He had returned to his roots, seeking the peace that only his childhood home could provide. The rolling hills and open fields reminded him of simpler times, before his name echoed around the world, before he became more than just a man. If this story has already made you feel something, no matter how small, don't leave without giving back. Comment and tell me where you're watching this video from, and subscribe to the channel. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the landscape as Ali slowed his Cadillac near an old farm. Something had caught his eye. A crowd gathered around what appeared to be a livestock auction, but this wasn't the usual bustle of commerce. There was a heaviness in the air, a tension that pulled at him. Without thinking, he pulled over, curiosity guiding his steps toward the gathering. "They're gonna put him down," a weathered farmer explained as Ali approached, recognition flickering in the man's eyes, but respect keeping him from making a scene. "That bull there, sick as a dog. Owner can't afford the treatment, and nobody wants to buy damaged goods." Ali's gaze followed the man's gesture to a magnificent animal, once powerful, but now visibly suffering. The bull's muscular frame was diminished, its eyes clouded with pain, yet there remained a dignity in how it held its head, refusing to surrender to its condition. Something about the animal's silent struggle resonated deep within Ali's soul, a fighter recognizing another fighter, even across the boundaries of species. "How much?" Ali asked simply, his voice quiet but firm. The auctioneer, a thin man with suspenders and a rapid-fire delivery, paused mid-sentence. "Ain't worth your time, Mr. Ali. That bull's got maybe 2 weeks left in him. Veterinarian bills would cost more than good meat." Ali stepped forward, the crowd parting before him like water around a stone. He approached the bull, unafraid, and looked into its eyes. What he saw there was not just pain, but a will to live that matched his own tenacity in the ring. "I didn't ask about his health," Ali said, turning back to the auctioneer. "I asked, how much?" 20 minutes later, Muhammad Ali was the owner of a dying bull named Thunder. The locals whispered among themselves, some laughing at the champion's foolishness, others nodding with respect at his compassion. None of them could have imagined what would happen next, or the secret that Thunder carried beneath his suffering exterior, a secret that would change everything. The old barn on Ali's property hadn't been used in years. Cobwebs hung from the rafters like ghostly curtains, and the smell of aged hay and dust filled the air. By nightfall, however, it had been transformed. Fresh straw covered the floor, water troughs were filled, and Thunder lay on a bed of clean hay, his labored breathing the only sound in the quiet space. "The vet says it's pneumonia, probably tuberculosis too," Jessica Barnes explained, pushing her veterinary instruments back into her bag. Her 30 years of experience was evident in the gentle efficiency with which she had examined the animal. "I can give him antibiotics, pain medication, but honestly, Mr. Ali, preparing yourself might be kindest. This bull's suffering." Ali stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the setting sun. "You know what they said about me before the Foreman fight? They said I was finished, too old, too slow." He turned to face her, his expression resolute. "Nobody decides when we're finished except God and ourselves." Jessica couldn't help but smile at his determination. "This isn't a boxing match. "Everything's a fight when you're cornered," Ali replied. "And that bull there, he's still got fight in his eyes." For the next 2 weeks, Ali spent every morning and evening in the barn. He hired farmhands to help with Thunder's care, but insisted on being there himself for the medication, for the feeding. He spoke to the bull constantly, the same rhythmic, poetic words that had hypnotized opponents and enthralled audiences worldwide, now directed at one ailing animal. "Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. The hands can't hit what the eyes can't see," he'd recite, stroking Thunder's broad forehead. "You and me, we're gonna shock the world." The locals thought he'd lost his mind. The press, catching wind of the story, painted it as an eccentric celebrity whim. But Ali remained undeterred, his conviction unwavering. On the 15th day, when Thunder should have been dead according to every medical prediction, the bull stood up, shaky at first, uncertain, but standing. Jessica Barnes couldn't believe her eyes when she arrived for what she thought would be her final visit. "This is medically impossible," she whispered, checking Thunder's vitals again and again. "His lungs are clearing. The fever's gone." She looked at Ali with newfound respect. "What did you do?" Ali smiled that famous smile. "I reminded him who he is. Sometimes that's all anybody needs." What nobody knew, what nobody could have possibly known, was that Thunder's recovery was just the beginning. The real secret, hidden beneath the bull's impressive exterior, would soon reveal itself in a way that would leave even the champion of the world speechless. 1 month after purchasing Thunder, with the bull now regaining his strength daily, Ali noticed something strange. While brushing the animal's coat, now glossy and thick where it had once been dull and matted, his hand passed over an unusual raised pattern on Thunder's hide. At first, he thought it was scarring, perhaps from mistreatment by a previous owner, but as he examined it more closely in the morning light, he realized it was something else entirely. Beneath the hair, barely visible unless you knew to look for it, was what appeared to be writing, not branded or carved, but almost as if it had grown naturally in the pattern of the bull's coat. "Jessica, you need to see this," Ali said when the veterinarian arrived for her weekly checkup. "Tell me I'm not imagining things." Jessica ran her hands over Thunder's side, her expression shifting from confusion to astonishment. "I've never seen anything like this in 30 years of practice," she admitted. "It's almost like a birthmark, but patterned too specifically to be random." As Thunder continued to recover, more of the pattern became visible. What at first had seemed like random markings gradually revealed themselves to be words in Arabic, Ali's religious language, though one he himself could read only sparingly. He brought in a local imam to translate. The elderly religious leader stood in stunned silence for several long minutes after examining Thunder. "Mr. Ali," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper, "these markings quote from the Quran. Specifically, they reference passages about mercy, compassion, and the sacredness of all life." The news spread quickly, first through the local community, then regionally. Some called it a miracle, others a hoax. Scientific experts clamored to examine the bull, while religious pilgrims began appearing at Ali's gate, hoping to catch a glimpse of what some were calling a divine sign. Ali himself remained surprisingly quiet about the phenomenon, declining most interviews and limiting access to Thunder. When pressed by one persistent reporter about whether he believed God had sent him a message, the normally verbose champion simply said, "Maybe the message isn't for me. Maybe I'm just the messenger." What troubled Ali most wasn't the attention or the controversy, but the effect it was having on Thunder. The once dying bull had recovered his physical health, but the constant stream of visitors, the flashing cameras, the prodding examinations, all of it seemed to be taking a toll on the animal's spirit. Where once Thunder had looked at Ali with what he could have sworn was gratitude, now there was something like resignation in those deep brown eyes. One night, sitting alone with Thunder after turning away yet another television crew, Ali made a decision. "They don't understand, do they?" he murmured, stroking the bull's neck. "They're so busy looking for miracles that they miss the one right in front of them. You fought when nobody thought you could win. That's the only miracle that matters." The next morning, long before dawn broke over the Kentucky hills, Muhammad Ali did something that would shock the world almost as much as his victory over George Foreman or his stand against the Vietnam War. It was a decision that would reveal the true meaning behind Thunder's secret and the true depth of the champion's heart. In the pre-dawn darkness, with only the stars as witnesses, Ali loaded Thunder into a specially prepared trailer. He drove himself, refusing assistance, taking back roads to avoid attention. 6 hours later, they arrived at their destination, a 1,000-acre animal sanctuary in Tennessee, hidden deep in the rolling hills and protected by the kind of security that normally surrounded Ali himself. "No cameras," Ali told the sanctuary's director, Eleanor Wilson, a silver-haired woman whose lifetime dedication to animal welfare had earned her international respect. "No visitors. No researchers. Just peace." Eleanor nodded, understanding immediately. "He'll have a good life here, Mr. Ali. Our animals aren't exhibits, they're residents. Their well-being comes first." Ali helped settle Thunder into his new home, a sprawling pasture bordered by woodlands, with a stream cutting through its heart and 5 other rescued bulls as companions. For hours, he simply sat on a fence, watching as Thunder cautiously explored his surroundings, gradually relaxing as he seemed to understand he was no longer a spectacle. "You know what people will say," Eleanor said, joining Ali at the fence. "That you're hiding the truth, that you're denying people a miracle." Ali's eyes never left Thunder. "The only truth worth knowing is that every life deserves compassion," he said. "Even when, especially when, there's nothing to gain from giving it." The press erupted when news broke that Thunder had disappeared. Conspiracy theories flourished. Ali had been threatened by religious extremists. The government had seized the bull for study. The whole thing had been an elaborate publicity stunt. Ali weathered the storm with characteristic resilience, neither confirming nor denying the wilder speculation, simply stating that Thunder deserved privacy. 6 months passed. The furor gradually died down, replaced by newer controversies and celebrities. Only a handful of people knew where Thunder truly was, and they kept the secret faithfully. Ali visited monthly, always unannounced, always alone. It was during one such visit, nearly a year after he had first bought the dying bull at auction, that the final piece of the story fell into place. Eleanor met him at the sanctuary gates, her expression both somber and strangely peaceful. "He passed in the night," she said simply. "No suffering. He was with the herd. The vet says it was heart failure. His heart was simply enlarged beyond what was sustainable." Ali felt the news like a physical blow, yet there was something expected about it too. Thunder had been living on borrowed time since the day they met. That he had survived this long was itself remarkable. "There's something else," Eleanor continued. "We performed a routine examination afterward. Muhammad." Thunder's heart was nearly twice the normal size for a bull of his age and breed. Medically, he shouldn't have been able to function, let alone recover from his illness. He was essentially living with a condition that should have been fatal. Ali stood silently, absorbing her words. "The markings on his hide," she added. "And our team documented them thoroughly before burial, as you requested. The translation your imam provided was correct, but incomplete. There was more text that only became visible after—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "After he passed. It forms a complete verse about how true strength comes from mercy, not power. That evening, alone in the pasture where Thunder had spent his final months, Muhammad Ali, the man who had stunned the world with his fists and his words, wept openly. Not just for Thunder, but for the profound simplicity of what he had learned. That compassion itself could be the greatest act of strength. In the years that followed, Ali quietly established the Thunder Foundation, an organization dedicated to animal welfare and ethical treatment. He never publicly connected it to the bull with the mysterious markings, never used the story for publicity or personal gain, but those close to him noted that his already considerable compassion seemed to deepen after Thunder, extending beyond humans to embrace all living beings. The true secret of Thunder's markings remained known to only a handful of people. Were they a natural phenomenon with an extraordinary coincidental pattern, a divine message, a reminder of humanity's responsibility toward all creation? Ali himself never claimed to know with certainty. What he did know, what became the cornerstone of his later years, was that his impulsive act of compassion toward a dying animal had changed him in ways no championship fight ever had. It had shown him that true greatness lies not in the battles we win in the spotlight, but in the quiet moments of mercy we offer when nobody is watching. If you've made it this far and felt every word, don't leave without subscribing. I tell these stories with my heart in my hand to reach people like you who feel, who get emotional, who truly live. If this really touched you, give back. Comment, subscribe, come be part of this family with me until the next video.